to go. Perhaps you could go ahead and introduce our speaker for today.
Thank you, Greg, and welcome to all of you. I have just immense pleasure in introducing to you Joe Puthuran, Joseph Puthuran, Joe as he is known, a student of Clarence School, graduate from IIT Madras, management at XLRI, Jamshedpur, well-accomplished engineer at L&T and Voltas. His CV speaks for itself. He has been an ardent member of GIIC for nearly 2 years now and has contributed immense knowledge to it, though silently. Thank you, Joe. Now, he goes to the Orthodox Church, but extremely open to all other Christian denominations. He discusses openly, deeply, and very, very sensitively. He's an engineer with passion, but then as a passionate engineer, you have little time for other priorities. But he knew his priorities too well, the wise man that he looks. He knew his priorities and put the Bible also in one of his major priorities, to study the Bible. This came from the grounding he had as a student, and he always stuck to it. And now he's an immensely happy man because of God. Dear friends, to study the Bible is a skill and a gift from God, but that's not all. But to internalize it and to apply it in daily life and share it with others is a grace that only God can give. He is one who thinks deeply, but talks less. When he talks precisely, without clutter. You hear so many people talking about cut the clutter, cut the fog, but most of it is fog and clutter. But when he expresses himself, it's sharp and it is no clutter. It is very precise, especially when it comes to faith. So I have great pleasure and great privilege in introducing to you Joe Puthuran, our speaker for today. Thank you, Joe, and welcome.
Thank you, Jokum, for the kind words. I think I should.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I just wanted to say that the two songs that we sang just now were very beautiful. The first one is about fellowship and rejoicing together, which is so critical for us to live a life in Christ. And the second one is about the Lord himself, how he gave himself. He avoided taking the shortcut because Satan told him, you just bow down to me, this whole world belongs to me, and then everything I will give you. But then the Lord refused the shortcut and he went through the cross. And there's a time we are remembering that. So so I'd like to share about my own life and experience in following Christ throughout my career and even from before that. So the cross in the workplace, the challenges of our Christian calling. I hope I'm clear and you can hear me clearly.
Yes, Joseph.
Thanks.
Yes.
As Jochen said, I grew up in Bangalore, Clarence School, near the Holy Ghost Church, Richardstown. Most of my life I spent in New Delhi. Now we are back in Bangalore. I grew up here. My father was in HL. And of course, I'm a member of the Orthodox Church. We have a liturgy identical to what the Malankara Catholic Church has, except for minor differences in doctrine or some significant differences in doctrine. There are a lot of similarities. I must say that I was very impressed with the concept of GIIC because it's very difficult to believe that God is in control when we look at the world around. But that's a fundamental truth based on which we as Christians live. So the purpose of my presentation is to think with you about the challenges of God's calling in the workplace. As you would have noticed, this presentation is not a formal presentation. It's more to communicate clearly, even if my words don't come through clearly. So you can read what is written there, and much of it communicates what I want to say. Now, one of the things we learn in what we've been taught in management school is about the vision of the stone cutters. Perhaps many of you have heard about it. So what a person who visits stone cutters in England somewhere, and he went to the first person and asked him, what are you doing? So he said, I'm cutting stone. What else? So he went to the second person, asked him, what are you doing? He was also cutting stone. But he said, I'm earning my bread. So he had a different vision of what he was doing. And the third person he asked him, what are you doing? Also cutting stone. But what he said was very different from the other two. He said, I'm building a cathedral. So the point is, it is the third category of person who would be a CEO of a company, because he can look at, conceptualize the whole thing irrespective of what he's doing. Now, vision is very important for each one of us, a personal vision, not the vision of our company, but for our personal lives. I have thought about it, and one of the only things I feel that would be relevant for a Christian, is my view, is this. Jesus talked about the parable of the three, the talents, where he gave talents were given to three people by three slaves by a master. And we know the story how the first person, he got 5 talents and he got 5 more talents. And then his master said, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in a few things. I'll put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. When I look at my own life, what should my vision be as a person? I think the only vision that I have is to live a life so that at the end the Lord will say of me when I come to meet him, well done, good and faithful servant. And that's a big expectation, but God has given us an opportunity in this world to be a good and faithful servant, and it's difficult, and that's where that's the significance of fellowship to achieve that. And I think that is my vision, and I believe it should be the vision of any Christian, because we have a short life to live, and during that life we'll be answerable and we'll be meeting the Lord. Now, the work environment, the real work environment, I don't know how you look at it, but 1 John 5:19 tells us that we know that we are the children of God, and that the whole world is under the control of the evil one. I'm sure we see that in our lives, in our work. And also, but we are expected to work in that evil world which is controlled by the evil one. As Paul says in 1 Corinthians 9:11, he says that within the church, you have to put away anybody who's immoral. I'll just read you in my letter not to associate with sexually immoral people, not meaning the sexually immoral of this world, or the greedy, or the swindlers, or the idolaters, since then you need to go out of the world. So the point is, we are called to work into the world and not to go away from it and to work. But then it is a big challenge, as we can see, because we know that who is controlling this world, even though the Lord is sovereign. I want to talk to you about 4 scenarios initially to give an idea of the challenges that we face. First is, when I was young, I was studying for engineering, and I heard about small-scale industries being encouraged by the government. I thought, well, maybe I should start a small-scale industry and let me register. So I went to the office in Bangalore and asked them for the form. They said the form that you had to fill it. I said, yeah, please give me the form. I'll fill it in. If I have to pay for it, I'll buy it. But then they said there's no form. No more printouts are available. Unfortunately, now you'll have to come later. I was quite disappointed, but anyway.
You take coffee? You don't.
Then as I walked out.
Is this coffee yours or is for Liju?
Yeah, I think we've got a disturbance on the line. Anyway, so as I walked out of the small scale industry office, janitor or peon followed me and said, "Sir, I've got the form. You just have to pay ₹2 and you can fill it in and register right now." I didn't want to buy it. It was only ₹2, but the thing, it was so depressing. Without bowing down and giving these fellows some money, you can't even register. So I just decided not to do it. I just gave it up. Then secondly, there is the question of Johnny, name changed. Johnny was a member of our church in Delhi, not our church, but one of the 11 Orthodox churches in Delhi. We had a get together. And there I was also sharing about how we have to stand up for principles in the workplace and all that. And what Johnny told me just blew me off. You know what he said? "See, uncle, you can say all these things about standing up for principle, but then I have got a mother who's a widow. I don't have a father. I have to support her, and I have a sister who is studying. Now, you can say all that, but what will I do?" Well, I just had to keep quiet. I didn't know what to say. The reality is different, and he had to obviously compromise, and he didn't specify what it was, but he really pushed me back on that. Then there's a question of Christine. Christine was a lady who we met in Delhi. She was in the 40s probably, quite accomplished, and she was in the hotel industry, and she accepted Christ and shared her testimony, and we are also happy about it, about her testimony and hearing about her. Then she also told us that she's coming to Bangalore as the general manager of the Taj Hotel. You know, the one near Trinity Circle. So I thought that's a wonderful thing. And so when I came to Bangalore, I wanted to ask her one question. I just want to ask her, I arranged for a meeting with her, and she gave me an appointment, and I went and met her, and I asked her, "Ma'am, you are managing a hotel, a 5-star hotel. To manage a hotel like that, how can you manage without bribing the water department, the electricity department, and a whole host of people? How do you manage?" Then she said, "Yes, that is true. But then you will have to work on changing it slowly. But then obviously there is compromise in it." So again, I didn't know what to do. I don't have an answer to that. But then about the fourth instance is about Bobby. Bobby was a Sardar convert. He came to Christ many years ago. And because he accepted Christ, his father disowned him of all his property. He has 4 sisters. He's the only son. And except for the elder sister, who also came to know Christ on her own, who settled in Canada, everyone were strong Sardarnis and opposed to him, and even today don't talk to him. But the elder sister took him to Canada, and there got him trained as a pilot, and he got a pilot license in Canada. Bobby was quite brilliant and very good in his studies and all that. And then after that, he had to come back to India, and then he needed to convert his Canadian license to an Indian license. And for that procedure, you have to undergo an examination conducted by the Director General of Civil Aviation in Delhi, the DGCA. They have 4 exams a year. And after that, you can convert your foreign license. So he obviously applied for it and wrote it. He failed in all the 3 subjects that were there. Then he was surprised because in Canada, he used to get 98, 99, 96, never less than 95%. But here he failed. Then a second time he wrote it. The second time also he failed. Several months later, the third time he wrote it. Then he passed in just 1 subject, but the other 2 he failed. So the next time when he went to apply for the exam, his the clerk there said, "Sir, I think I seen you before." He said, yes, I've been writing the exam many times and I've not passed, so I have to write it again. So I said, you don't understand. Why don't you take some tuition, and the tutor will see that you pass. So he said, yeah, I don't need any tuition because I know my subject. I worked hard and all that. See, you don't understand. The tutors, they take about 70,000 to 1.5 lakhs per exam, and they pass on it to the officers in the DGCA, and they make sure that you pass. So he was quite confused about it, and so he went back to his home and to think about what to do. So we'll continue with Bobby a little later, but the demand for compromise is a very real problem in the workplace. In fact, as I said earlier, the Lord was also asked to compromise. He said, just bow down to me. Satan said, bow down to me, I'll give you all these things, but the Lord refused, and he had to go through the cross. And this is the same cross is it that we are supposed to go through. Now the question is, why should one not compromise? One of the people I was very delighted meeting in the GIIC was Greg. Greg is a member of the Aam Aadmi Party, if you don't mind my saying that. The anti-corruption movement under the leadership of Anna Hazare had captured the imagination of a very large number of people, especially the young in the country. And somehow it fizzled out. I think for us to sustain anything, there's a need to understand deeply why we should not compromise or why we are doing something. And as a Christian, why is it that we should not compromise? I think the Bible teaches us that we are created in the image of God. Not like the animals like other religions talk about. We are not like animals. God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish and the sea and the birds and livestock and all the wild animals and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So there is a dignity with which God has created us. And if we understand that dignity, we will not dare to defile it, because it is the dignity that God has given us by creating us. It doesn't matter whether we are rich or poor, whether we are good looking or not good to look at, whether we are disabled mentally or physically, blind, or whatever it is. As a human being, we are created in God's image, and it is something far above anything else, and with a dignity that God has provided us with. And undermining that dignity is going against the Lord himself, and making a mockery of God, in whose image we have been created. Now, this idea of dignity is there in the hearts of all people. In fact, that's why this Aam Aadmi Party and Anna Hazare movement caught on. But I'm not even very sure how deeply ingrained that idea is in their mind. Maybe it is, but one of the reasons is God has blessed our country in many ways. We may not realize it, but Dr. Ambedkar, who was the architect of our constitution, is a person who was not a Christian, but somehow God has used him to give us a constitution that is just amazing, actually. And we'll just have a quick look at the preamble to see what Ambedkar has been able to achieve through that. Then, of course, we have got great people like Tagore, who wrote our national anthem, which basically is, I think, a hymn of praise which any Christian can proudly sing. That where it says, it starts with, "Thou art the ruler of the minds of all people, the controller of the destiny of India," and then all the Vindhyas and the Himalayas, they worship you. I think it's very Christian. So that way, God has blessed our country, and we just have a quick look at the preamble to our constitution, which I think any Christian can be very proud of. So the preamble says the objectives of our constitution are: one, to get justice, social, economic, and political for all people. for liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and opportunity, and promote among them all fraternity. Fraternity means brotherhood, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. Ambedkar knew that the Dalits were downtrodden and treated not like brothers, but he put the word fraternity there, that all Indians are brothers. And the Constitution guarantees that, but unfortunately, there are people who want to destroy our Constitution. But this is what I believe God has given us and blessed our nation with, and something we can justifiably be proud of. And then, of course, the poem of Tagore, I think it's again talks about what God expects us to be. It's something that I'm sure most of you would have heard and seen and been proud of, but I'll repeat it even because it's such a beautiful song. He says, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic wars, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. Can we not all pray this prayer? I think it's as Christian as, and it's surprising that in a country which is not Christian, but probably a country from which probably where one of the wise men came to visit Christ came, we don't know, but this is something that we as Indians can be proud of, and we don't have to say this from the Bible. It's basically from the Bible, but it has come from a non-Christian, Tagore, who is from the Brahmo Samaj, has given this. Then let's come back to the story of Bobby. Now, Bobby got stuck. He could not pass his exams, and he, as I said, he went back to went back to his home and thought about it. The only two options for him was to take tuition, which he didn't want to, or pay 60 or 70,000 rupees to the. So he consulted with the church elders. He belonged to a evangelical church, which is doing a lot of evangelism.
Don't you know what is
Christ. And this is the advice that he got from his elders. So I just play this. I hope you can hear it clearly.
So I went to them, and after much thought, my leaders kind of told me that, see, you are not really paying any bribe as such, because you are paying the tuition fees, or you are paying something what they call a facilitation fees. It's a fees that helps to facilitate the work. He said, otherwise we cannot run this church also, because even running this church, we have to facilitate a lot of things. So what they do is they have an agent whom they give money, and then the agent goes and pays the bribes. And then I distinctly remember my senior most pastor also mentioning that Bible does not say don't give bribe, it says don't take bribe. So the onus is on the person who's taking the bribe. You are absolved of it. Bible kind of absolves you of it. So I got confused. What to do? They seem right. Theologically also they seem okay. They're correct. I'm only giving a fees. And I am not taking bribes. I'm only giving a bribe. But this one thing stayed very strong with me, that through this, God will not get glorified. And the other God, who is in the Bible called as Mammon, or as money, will get glorified. That I passed my exams because of money,
And
not because of God.
He went, and about the seventh time he didn't pay any money. For the 7th time they passed, and they must have been quite embarrassed. Otherwise he will go to the court or something like that. So I think they were also afraid of keeping him. So he had spent at least 2 years wasting his time doing the exam, which he knew very well, and he could very well have passed without any help in the first time. So after that, he went and he had to get his conversion done. So then this is what he I had requested him to record what his experience was, because it was a long time ago and I had forgotten. So he's a person who I had met by coincidence because of some particular reason. I believe the Lord appointed for me to meet him. But anyway, so this is what happened after his passing his exam.
Once I got my result sheet, and now came the process of converting my license, which was the Canadian license, to Indian license. So when I approached DGC office, I submitted my application in the office. And during those days, you could not enter the office, so you had to stand outside and submit the application. I kept following up, and nothing happened. Months passed. And again, some of my leaders were saying, you have wasted your time, your money, you have spent close to already 3 years of your life with this license sitting idle. You wasted the money on the license. Do what needs to be done, get the license and then start flying. That is the will of God for you. But again, my thing was that if I do this, I will get glory, but God will not get glory through this. It has to be a miracle. And that is the time when you walked into...
Sardar I knew before was Sadhu Sundar Singh. And anyone who accepts Christ from other faiths, I have a lot of respect for, because it's a big price you have to pay to come to Christ. And for us, it is easy because we were born in a Christian family. So, I think it was providential that I met him, and for him, it was not providential, it was God's hand. Because I happened to know one of the IAS officers who was actually named Roy Paul, who was the Civil Aviation Secretary. For some time when Air India didn't have a chairman, he acted as chairman also. So he was from Kerala and known to our family and all that. Not that I know many people, but he was one person I knew. Probably that's the reason that God introduced me to, or got me in touch with Bobby. So then I took him to Roy Paul and told him, see, I knew he's a Christian, Roy Paul's a Christian. And I said, see, here's a person who's come from a Sikh faith, and he is not able to get his license. He's wasted so much of time, and but he's not willing to bribe. That's why he has not got it. So Roy Paul was very sympathetic and considerate. Actually, under him was the DGCA, the Director General of Civil Aviation, Kanu Gohain. Kanu Gohain was an IAS officer working under Roy for several years, and he was the Director General of Civil Aviation at that time. So Roy said we'll talk to Dr. Gohain, and or Mr. Gohain. Gohain is a Northeast, also a Christian from the Northeast. So then Bobby went and met him, and this is what Bobby shares about his experience of meeting Gohain. He was called by the office of the DGCA, and he went and visited him.
Mr. Kanu Gohain, and Mr. Kanu Gohain's office called me to come, and Mr. Kanu Gohain got my file, opened it in front of all the officers, and he ordered that my license be issued that very day. Even after his orders, they took like 2-3 days to issue my license because they got so offended the way it was done. Then later on, when I went to give a testimony in the church that see how God blessed me after 3.5 years of struggle, then my pastors came and told me that don't give testimonies like that, because everybody doesn't have contacts like you have. everybody doesn't know the Director General or somebody else senior. I did not, in my testimony, I did not mention the Civil Aviation Secretary, but my pastor knew about it because he asked me. So he said, everybody doesn't know the Civil Aviation Secretary. People don't know such high authorities. So they have to pay their way. So please don't give such testimonies in the church because people get confused. You're stopping them from doing work. We need to do work. We need to save souls and do all this thing done. So, but I don't know. It didn't sit with me. So eventually, currently, I'm not a part of that church anymore.
And then Bobby later on, he got his license and he joined Air India and was flying for several years in the Dreamliners, if I'm not mistaken. And that's the story of, and he's still doing a lot of great work. He's in Delhi, suffering a lot, yet he's serving the Lord, and I'm very proud of having known Bobby. Now, I think I've got about 10 minutes left. So I'll briefly share about my own experience in the Ministry of Health. I used to represent Christian Medical College, Vellore in Delhi for liaison work with the government. And much of the work was in the Ministry of Health. And at that time, there was a facility for non-profit hospitals to get a reimbursement for customs duty that is paid for equipment that's imported. This was in 94 or so when this incident occurred, and Vellore, CMC Vellore had about 1 crore of reimbursement to get from the government. Now at 95, 1 crore was a lot more money than it is today, a big amount of money. And I used to follow up and used to go to the ministry and check, and I realized that without money, nothing will happen. I was also sure that I'm not going to pay any money. But people from Vellore were saying, what is this fellow sitting in Delhi? He can't follow up. I mean, they're getting all kinds of flack from there. In fact, the director of Vellore at that time was Dr. Benjamin Pullimud, professor of medicine and all that, and he was the director. And he visited Delhi. When the directors visit Delhi, or the senior people, I go with them and take them around. So I took Dr. Pullimud to the Assistant Director General of Health Services. One Sen was there. So I told him, then he explained to him, see, it cannot be done for this reason and some more reason. Then after coming out, I told Dr. Pullimud, see, it's just excuses that they're making. If you make the payment, you will get it done. But that's something I will not have anything to do. I think it's not correct. Then I was surprised what Pullimud told me. He said, Joseph, Vellore is a teaching institution, and we cannot be involved in paying bribes. I was surprised because most directors are not like that. Pullimud was, and I suppose God put such a person when I was there. And so we did not pay the money, and it got delayed, and probably I'm sure Pullimud also got some flack for not being able to follow this through. Then I saw how God intervened. Because I tried everything. The Assistant Director General was corrupt. His boss was Additional Director General of Health Services corrupt. When two people are corrupt in the hierarchy, you cannot go to the Director General, who was one Dr. Vishwakarma at that time. So then I thought the only hope is probably to see Shankaranand, the Minister of Health, and we had no contacts. I had no means of contacting him. He was from Karnataka, but somewhere in Miraj, and I thought through Christian Medical College in Miraj we could probably contact him, but then nothing worked out. But then the wonderful thing that the Lord did. In fact, Dr. Silvera was made Minister of State Health in February 1995. Dr. Silvera is a Christian. He is a Mizo, probably a MP who was in the MP for a very long time in Delhi, and he was made a Minister of State for Health. So I thought that's a good opportunity. So we contacted Dr. Silvera, and he helped us get it. But the whole joke of the whole thing was, in fact, I felt the Lord telling me, see what you want to minister, I'll put in here. I felt Dr. Silvera was brought to the Ministry of Health because we refused to compromise. So Dr. Silvera, the big joke about Silvera was he did his MBS from CMC Vellore. That's the whole joke. And then after he got it done, it was not easy because there was a lot of resistance, because a lot of commissions could have been collected by them. But then I saw how I didn't have any contact, had nothing, but then how God is in control of every minister, everything in the world, in the country, the government he controls. We sometimes think they are so powerful, but we sang in the beginning that he is powerful. A group is called God is in control, but it's extremely difficult to believe that. But when you do believe that and are willing to pay the price, then you'll see God moving. So he says in John 1 John 2, 15 to 17, he says, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that in the world, the desire of the flesh, the desire of the eyes, pride in possessions is not from the Father, but from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires. But whoever does the will of God abides forever. Now, Bobby wasted 3 years foolishly. I suppose that foolishness is very characteristic of people in the Bible. One of the people who really did a foolish thing like that was Noah. Everyone came and the young people used to drink, and in the evening they used to have a good joke about him making a ship in the desert. But then he did not care about what they said. He believed God. And then this beautiful verse, Jeremiah 29:13 says, you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Now, if we have got a second option, say, Lord, help us to do all this, and then God doesn't help. We've got an alternate way, we bribe or do something like that to get away with it. But then if you don't trust him fully, you think God is going to come to us and say, yes, I'm going to do this for you. He's not a beggar. If you don't trust him fully, you can't expect him to do anything for you. So that's why it's so significant. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Like Bobby, he did not bother about anything. Even his pastors told him from an evangelical, highly respected church, go ahead, pay and fly. But he didn't. But then he was one person who did seek with all his heart, and God revealed it to him. And the reason he was able to succeed is not because he had any influence. He actually had no influence. He did not know what to do. But it pleased God to use me to talk to him. If I was not there, he would have used somebody else. But then that's how God works. Now, the problem is it is very challenging. You can't really survive in a world that is controlled by Satan. He'll hammer you and you'll have to compromise. But how can we still succeed? That's where a fellowship like GIIC or a fellowship of people who love the Lord and believe that God is in control will help us. And that's why the Bible tells us, let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful, and let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds, not forsaking our own assembling together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. That's one of the reasons I've been coming regularly to at GIIC and any other fellowship of Christians. Because I realize I am weak, and every time I go to an office, even now I'm scared. What will I say? Because I'm sure that I'm not going to pay anybody, but I'll have to struggle. So in summary, what we have sort of covered is that the vision that each one of us, I feel, or I have for my life is that when the Lord calls me home, he will say of me, well done, good and faithful servant. I know I'm very far from that, but then I look forward to the fellowship of brothers and sisters like you to encourage me and help me to live as the Lord wants. Then God expects us to uphold the dignity of being created in his image and not be a compromisers. Very difficult, but very difficult to trust him. We need to trust the Lord with all our heart. Can we really say God is in control? I think it's something that we need to ask ourselves. Am I ready to really deny myself and use the power of fellowship with other Christian believers to read the word, to understand God's purposes for my life? And when I make a mistake, when I have a problem, will they be able to encourage me and guide me, rather than like the pastors in Bobby's church who told him it doesn't matter, go ahead and compromise. So this is basically what I thought I should communicate, my own experience and what I really deeply believe. I should say once again that God is indeed in control. Thank you.
I think